Hello everybody! Welcome to another video from Code Shots with Profanis. In this video, we will see how to install Cypress in an Angular 12 application, and we will also see how to use it in a simple user flow. So, let's get started. The application that we will use is an Angular 12 application and actually has been upgraded from an older version. Let's see the packagation. And as we can see, we have the version 12 here. Before we start installing Cypress, the flow that we're going to follow is the following. Let's go to the browser. We have this simple application where we have the username and the password field. We use for this example video Taiga UI, and we have this simple form, and as soon as we fill anything here in the username and anything in the type of password, if I click login, we will go to the dashboard, as we can see here, which is activated. Apart from the dashboard, this is the first user flow that we will try to cover. We also have another flow which has to do with the products. But again, the flow will be like, I'm going to log in, and after logging in, I'm going to visit the products page. So two different flows. The first one from login to dashboard, and then from login to products. To install Cypress, we will use the ng add at cypress/schematic. In the question, would you like to proceed? We answer yes. And in the next question, would you like the default ng E2E command to use Cypress? Yes, definitely. So yes here as well. Let's go to the Explorer and see what kind of installation this package did. In the packagation, we have E2E with ng E2E, and of course this has to do with Cypress. We have Cypress open and Cypress run. The differences are that with Cypress open, it opens an Electron application, and from this application we can see all the end-to-end test scripts that we have in our application. Later on we will see an example, of course. And the other one, the Cypress run, the difference is that it runs all the end-to-end tests in the terminal using an Electron browser, by default an Electron browser. Apart from these, we can see that we have now the Cypress schematic here. We have the Cypress JSON configuration. We have the integration folder, support file, videos folder, screenshots, plugins, fixtures, and base URL. We won't cover all the directories now, but this one is important, the base URL. This means that our application runs in localhost in port 4200. If later on we decide to change the default port and instead of 4200 to be something else, we'll have to update this base URL as well. And now let's go to the Cypress. We have fixtures, integration, plugins, screenshots, support, videos, and the tsconfig JSON file. In the integration file, we have by default a spec.ts, which is a default test. And let's see what we have in this file. In the describe, we are actually describing what this test is all about. We give a friendly name, like we have in this one, my first test, and this actually is a test suite. Under this test suite, we can have more than one test. Each test is denoted with this it. Each test now has a different name, which describes what each test is responsible for. The first one says that it visits the initial project page. Nice. Now let's see what these three lines are all about. At first, and since we are working with Cypress, the keyword for Cypress is cy, from Cypress. The first method visit is self-explanatory, and it will visit a specific URL, and this one particularly is the root one. And you might be wondering, root, what does that mean? If you remember previously, we said about the base URL, which was localhost 4200. So we're visiting the root page. The second line make sure that this page, the root one, has a text with the value welcome. And the third line should make sure that contains also the sandbox app is running text. In any case, we can have under the test suite as many tests as we like, and it's important to have at least one expectation at each test. Without any further delay, let's go to the package.json and run this command, Cypress open npm run, and I will paste Cypress open here. This is the electron that we can see, and it's important to check the following, that here we have a list of tests, and currently we have only one test, that's why we have the spec.ts. Unfortunately, I cannot zoom in this window. Apart from this list with tests, we also have here a list of browsers, the browsers that the tests are going to run. And if I click, we can see that we have Chrome 91 version, Firefox and Electron. And if we click this one, the spec.ts, it will open the Chrome browser and it will start running the test. Let's now spend some time here and understand what we see. This one, my first test is, let's go to the VS Code, is the name of the suite. My first test. If we expand it, we can see that this is the first test visits the initial project page. And actually the Cypress, what it does is that it keeps a snapshot for each executed step. And if we click here, we can see that this is the root. And then it tries to check whether the welcome string is contained into this page. And of course, it does not. If we go further down, we can see the error also, that timeout returning after 4 seconds, expected to find content welcome but never did. And the good thing here is that we have also this link, which if we click it, it will open VS Code and it will focus directly in the place that we have, in the line that we have the error. Nice, very good one. Now let's try to write our first end-to-end test. At first we will try to capture this flow, to type anything here in the username, type anything in the password, click login and redirect it to dashboard. This is what we're trying to do. To start with, I will go to the Cypress directory, I will copy the spec.ts and I will name it login.spec.ts, and the name of the suite will be login. Let's start with the first test and it will be like, it should not log in if the form is invalid, because this is also a very valid scenario, right? And we should capture it. It should not log in if the form is invalid. Visiting the root, and then I'm going to do the following. I'm going to make sure that the URL should include the login. This is the first step that I'm going to test. Before we move further, let's go here, and as we can see immediately in the running application, in the running Electron application, we see now the login spec, and if we click this, we can see the first test. Visit the root page and then make sure that the URL includes the login, which it does, as we can see here. Now let's continue. The next step for this test is to type a value in the username input field. To make this happen, we should locate the input field. We have many options to do so. A practice that I really like when I have to write selectors for form fields, like this one, is to use the form control name directive. As such, we will go into our test and we will type cy from Cypress get in order to provide our selector there. and I got now to create the selector for an attribute. This is the form control name after all, right? Form control name, and I have now to provide the name. What is the name of this form control name? Let's go to the login component HTML. It's username. This means that I'm going to get the form control name with value username, and then I'm going to type a value, and this will be profanis. Nice. The next step is to click the button. So cy get, I want just to find the button, no more than this. I have just one button, so it's okay to do it like this, and click this button. And definitely every step should have an expectation. And the expectation for this one is that Cypress URL should not include what? The dashboard. And why dashboard? The flow is the following, that as soon as we have a valid form, if we click the submit button, then it will move to the dashboard page. If the form is not valid, I'm going to remain in the same page, and in any case, I should not see the dashboard. Let's go to the Electron app, click the login, and see it running. Nice, nice. So the first test, it seems that it's green. Should not log in if the form is invalid. It seems that it's okay. And as we said, Cypress has the time travel and captures every executed step. If I click now here in the visit, we can see that we no longer have here the username. The second step is to make sure that we have the login, and then we're getting the form control name, and we can see that it's highlighted on the right side. Type the value profanis, get the button, this one is highlighted as well, click it and make sure that the URL does not include the dashboard. Nice. So this is the first test. Now let's copy this. I will duplicate and I will create the second step. It should log in if the form is valid. And this is sort of the same, but to make this valid, we need to provide also the password, right? Let's go to the login component HTML. Similarly to the form control name username, we have also the form control name password. So let's go to our test and paste here password, and I will provide my secret password. I will then click the button, and as said, we definitely need to have an expectation. So cy URL should include dashboard. This should be a valid one. Let's go to the Electron application, stop the current execution, and again click the login. See it running. The first one is valid and the second one is valid. Let's open this, should log in if the form is valid, and as we can see, we have all the steps. If for any reason we have any problem with our running test and we want to inspect it further, we can do the following. Before you click, for example, I want to pause the execution. What this will do, it will pause and it won't move on unless we click here the resume button. And if I click the resume, the flow will continue. Something very important that I would like to capture here is that every test should be isolated, and this means that before we run any test, we should make sure that the user is logged in. This means that these lines should be repeated again and again, and of course this is not a very good approach, right? So what we can do is the following. I will open the Explorer and I will go to the commands, support commands. Similar to the page object that the protractor has, we have here the commands from Cypress, which are functions that can be reused from any end-to-end test throughout the application. So let's start and do the following. I will remove the comment from here. I don't want to have a custom command as a name, but I want to have like a login, and the argument will be a username of type string and a password of type string. And this again is going to be login. I will remove this comment, and this will be the login, and we have to replace this as well. Let's remove this, and we definitely need to have this login here and login here. Nice. The missing part now is that we need to implement this login function. And to do so, let me have side by side the commands and this test. I will cut these lines from here and I will paste them into this function. And of course, I will replace the username with Profanis and password. Nice. What we can do now is that instead of having all these lines there, I can be like from Cypress.login, and I'm going to provide the username Profanis and the password to be like a password here. Let's go to the Electron application, stop the current executed one, click again login. And we have the error that cy.login is not a function. Why is this? Of course, we missed something. As soon as we have the commands, we definitely need to make the commands available into the index file. And the reason is that we can have many different command files here. We can have a separation of concerns and be like, I want to have my commands for my product page, I want to have my commands for my user page, and so on and so forth. And every command file should be listed in the index file here. Let's close this file and go back to the Electron, stop the current executed and click login again and see it running. The first one should definitely be green and we should see the second one, which it's green. And as we can see, with fewer lines, we managed to do the same thing. Now let's repeat this test, and instead of login, I will have it for products. So product spec.ts, and this one should be products, and the flow will be very simple. Should login and navigate to products page. I want to have login, and then what I want to do is the following. I want to apply a selector here and grab this menu item. I will inspect this and I will search for app navigation, and as we can see, we have two different LIs. The first LI is for dashboard and the second LI item is for the products. So from app navigation, I'm going to grab the second LI. From Cypress, get the app navigation, the LI, and I know that this one is going to return a list of items. And for this reason, I'm going to grab the second one and click it. And as soon as we do this, I want the Cypress URL should include, either include or includes is the same, products. Now let's go again to the Electron application, stop the current executed one, and what we can see is that we have login spec and the product spec. I will click this and we will see in the browser that everything worked well. We visited the root and then we made sure that we have the login. We found out the form control name username and then the form control name password. We found out the button and we clicked the button, and we also found the navigation as we can see here. And this has two different items, and we said find the second one, click it, and make sure that the URL includes the products. Nice, very good one. So let's stop this. And this is how we create end-to-end tests using Cypress. And the last thing to do is the following, that let's run the other one, the other command. Instead of npm run cypress open, I will give it a try with the cypress run. This will run all the end-to-end tests in the terminal headlessly using the Electron browser. And let's see the report. We have a failure, and the reason is that the default one, the spec.ts, had an error there, which is totally fine. The login spec had 2 tests, 2 passing, the product spec had 1 test and 1 passing. Awesome. And what else we can do with Cypress is that we can have recorded videos and captured screenshots whenever we have a failed test. And we also can change the default browser, the headless browser. Instead of being Electron, we can have it like Firefox, or we have Chrome. Stay tuned in the next video to see more about Cypress. So that was it. Thanks for watching.